Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Signed. What time is it? Tell us that. Let me just look this up. Meeting of Monday, June 9th, 2025 of the Sewer Authority Midcoastside. Could I have a roll call, please?
Director Megangas. Here. Director Marsh.
Here.
Director Boyd. Here. Director Dye.
Here.
Director Slater Carter.
Present.
Chair Radek.
Here. Everyone's here. Okay, that's great. So we're moving on to item 2, which is public comment, and folks may comment on items that are not on the regular agenda, but that are on the consent agenda. So is there anyone in the room who would like to comment on this item? Hearing nobody, is there anybody online who would like to comment on this item? Seeing no hands raised. Oh, thank you, Kishan.
Yeah, I would like to welcome our new employee, David Kennedy, who's there on Zoom. He joined as an operator in training. He joined us from Southern California. Today was his first day at work.
Ah, wonderful. Welcome.
Nice to meet you all.
Yes. I'm from Southern California. You'll like it better here.
Yeah, you know what? I will say I kind of do. I'm not gonna lie. It was a very beautiful day. Everybody at the plant was amazingly nice, and I'm just very thankful that they've given me the opportunity to come on aboard.
Great, welcome. Glad to have you. I think you'll find it a great place to work.
It seems like it. Everybody's extremely nice, and everybody was just smiling all day, and that's the kind of vibes that I like to have. So,
all right, great, welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the board on the public comment section? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. So the consent agenda consists of item 3A, approved minutes of May 12th, 2025, which was a regular board meeting. Item 3B, which is approved disbursements for June 9th, 2025. And item 3C, monthly revenue and expense report for the period ending April 30, 2025. Anybody want to address any item on the consent agenda on the board?
I can't remember, since I wasn't here for the meeting that the minutes relate to. I can't remember if I should vote on it or not.
Jeremy, can you answer that question?
Yeah, she can vote on it. I mean, you can recuse yourself, but you don't have to.
Okay. And I won't vote.
Okay, I move adoption of the consent agenda.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. We're moving on to item 4, regular business. That's 4A, status update on FEMA reimbursements for the winter storm damage events of 2022-2023. Staff?
Yep. We have a small PowerPoint presented by SRT Consultants, who was managing our FEMA reimbursement funds. But before I hand it over to them, I'd like to give a short intro to the FEMA reimbursements. We actually started reaching out to FEMA way back in 2018 when we wanted to get the Princeton funding for the Princeton pump station. We reached out to FEMA, and at that point of time, we were told that we do not meet the eligibility requirement, because the eligibility requirement requires the sub-applicant to be either a state agency, local government, which is city, county, or special district. And we were neither of them, because we are a JPA. They said, no, you can do that only if you're a special district. So at that point of time, we reached out to our member agencies, or to all the 3 member agencies, and MWST jumped onto it and said, fine, we'll definitely can have you on our local hazard plan, LHMP, I think it's called LHMP.
Local hazard
Mitigation plan, yes, LHMP. So we worked with MWST, got a name, got all the details of Sam, put into the LHMP, got it approved by them, and then we were eligible for FEMA funding. So that helped a lot. So when we had the storm in 2020, 2021, 2022, the first thing they asked us was, are you guys in the approved LHMP? And we said, yes. We are as annex to MWSD's LHMP. And then we started moving forward with that. So I must say, all thanks to MWSD. They've done wonderful work.
I agree.
Supporting us and all through the process, FEMA reimbursement process. In fact, Clemens has also sat in a couple of meetings, which was mandatory for him to be there. And then we took over and we started doing all this work. But at every stage, and because of that, MWST has also got to do a couple of other things, which is way beyond what is required. Like they are subjected to a single audit because they're getting FEMA funds directly from FEMA. So this, once they get something more than 750,000 in a particular year, per year, then they have to be subjected to single audit. So they've been getting that done. There was the first time they got it done through the auditors, and this year again they'll be getting it done. So I must say special thanks to MWST for supporting Sam and for helping us get this FEMA reimbursement. Thank you.
Here, appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, we've got to give a shout out to our staff and Clemens in particular, because that's where the actual work happens. And, I think we're really happy to be able to team up and get that done. I mean, to miss out on those funds would have been, well, I'm glad we didn't have to miss out on the funds.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are too.
Yes. We appreciate
So
you and the work you do.
I'll now hand it over to Keely Nelson from SRT Consultants, who's helping us out with the FEMA reimbursement, and she'll give a short presentation. Over to you, Keely. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Kishan. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to share screen. All right, so I'm going to give an update on where we stand with the FEMA public assistance and reimbursement for the winter storm damages. Just a little background first. I think we're all aware, but there was a federally declared disaster back in the winter of 2022, 2023, and the SAM wastewater treatment plant and conveyance system were both impacted by that disaster, the winter storms and the flooding. In particular, on December 31st, 2022, there was a flash flood at the plant. That is because the severe storm coincided with a king tide condition, and Pilarcitos Creek was unable to thank you, discharge its flow to the Pacific Ocean like it normally does. So the creek overflowed into the plant, it spread debris, it flooded buildings, equipment, and some of the treatment processes. And if anyone was there that day, they got to see very high level at the creek. Thank you to SAM staff for that photo. In addition to the plant, the conveyance system was overwhelmed. There was a force main failure just south of the Valimar pump station, and there was also a lot of SSOs through the system. SAM staff was amazing and responded appropriately to every SSO, and also shut down the Montera and Valimar pump stations. So we didn't have any more discharge than we needed. The force main, a temporary bypass was put in within 3 days so that the pump stations could come back online. And then a full replacement of the section. There's temporary and then a final replacement within about a month afterwards. And that's just a photo while they were doing the repairs on that force main, right in between some houses and Highway 1 there. And that was done really quickly and efficiently. And then again, a shout out to SAM staff for their quick actions, utilizing sandbagging, other flood fighting methods. They protected a lot of equipment, especially the electrical equipment in our mechanical building 1. There was a 4-inch water depth from the flooding in that building. So they were able to prevent a full plant shutdown by their actions. However, some damage did occur. And so we had equipment, pumps, PLC cabinets, and hand tools were damaged from the flooding and needed repair or replacement. And these are another few shots from, I believe this is the blower room, and this is MB1 electrical room. And there's a lot more photos, but I think we've seen some of them before. So to start off the reimbursement request, Sam submitted a preliminary damage assessment to FEMA, and that was January 31st, 2023, to request public assistance and for reimbursement on all the winter storm damages. And as Kishan mentioned, we weren't eligible to apply on our own, so we couldn't be the applicant. And as Kishan, I'm not going to say this all again, but Kishan explained that we were able to apply through MWSD. They were required to pass a universal resolution in support of us, and that happened August 2023. So really, really appreciate that. Then we were underway with FEMA. We were utilizing their online grants portal. There was a lot of required information, documentation, photos, all the expenses, procurement policies, insurance information. They came out, did a site inspection in September. And so again, appreciation to Sam's staff for managing all that while we gathered all the information so that we could be approved. And this continued all the way through April 2025 of this year. And then we achieved all of FEMA's requirements. And so they handed us off to Cal OES to close out this project. We are going to submit a time extension request because there are a few repairs that we still need to accomplish and haven't been achieved yet. But we're planning to do that within the next year. And that is, Cal OES is aware of that. All right, so now we're to the meat of it. We have received, all the damage were divided into 8 projects, which is totaling $1,654,777. And FEMA calculated their share of that about 82%, so that's about 1.3 million. And then Cal OES, the state, their share is about 225,000, and that relieves just 4.5%. That's unreimbursable, and that's a little less than 75,000 of all the damage. And then the fun stuff here is what we've received. Okay, so far we've received most of all the reimbursement at this point. We're up to 1,477,657 almost, and that we're still waiting on about $100,000 yet to be received. And again, another shout out to MWSD for their support throughout this whole process so that we could receive these reimbursements. And then at the end.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Keely.
Do you want to add anything, Kishan, to that presentation?
Okay.
Do you want to add anything to that information?
I'm fine with whatever Keely has presented. I think it's all covered. Just the way it works is FEMA actually gives a check to MWST. They discuss it in their board meeting and then formally send it out to us. Mm-hmm. So that's the process which we've been going through.
So Montana Water Sewer District is the lead on these?
They are the sub-applicant.
That's weird. And because they're the ones that formed the
local
Hazard
mitigation program.
So we have one too, though.
Yeah.
So any of us probably could have done.
Could have done, yes.
But it sounds like this process began in 2018.
Yeah.
Before there was a need for, this scale of funding because of the storms, et cetera. So they already had that relationship, it sounds like.
Correct.
Am I right about that?
Yeah. So we had to get our name into the LHMP and get it approved. So along with that, what projects we do and all background information. So that is typically taken to the county and then approved. And then that is the FEMA approved LHNP. So if your name is there in the LHNP, then you're eligible to apply for FEMA funds. And that approval can be done, I think, once in 3 years or once in 2 years. So if you miss the bus now, you'll have to wait for 2 years when they actually have plans of making revisions to the LHNP.
I know when it was all happening in 2018, GCSD didn't have the staff do it at all, but I tried to do the local hazard thing, and I spent a little while on it and realized it was beyond me. I couldn't do it. It was too hard. And so since I knew others were doing it, but again, thank you to Montera for stepping up and doing this. Were any of the costs or time for Montera reimbursed in any way?
No, we did not. We did not ask for any details from NWSD because our management costs were itself high for grant management. We get only 5% of the total cost.
Right.
So I think we were able to cover whatever was required.
Wow.
I asked that question earlier today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we didn't pay NWSD, neither did they ask for it.
Well, they didn't ask for it, which again,
Amazing.
Yeah, that was very good on their part.
Yeah.
In fact, I did ask Clemens a couple of months back or last year saying, if you guys are doing a single audit, whether Sam should pay for the single audit because it's a special audit process. And he said, no, that shouldn't be a problem. We can take care of it.
Okay.
It's this grant, so it's just winding down by the end of June. Is that separate and distinct from what we're going to talk about next with the electrical building, unrelated in terms of grants?
Yeah, it's totally unrelated. The first one, what Keely spoke about, is a reimbursement. So which means either the work has been done or we provided an estimate. Now, before the closeout of the project, we have to show proof that the estimate has been completed and the job has been done.
Okay.
While in this case, in the second one, which we're going to talk about, we have to complete the work and then ask for money. It's like a grant.
Yeah.
So as it progresses, then we can start getting money.
Okay. Any other questions from directors? Is there anyone online who would like to address this item? Please raise your hand now. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. And I believe this is just to accept this report.
Correct.
Okay. So we will move on to item B, which is authorize general manager to enter into a contract with Stantec Consulting Services in an amount not to exceed $404,440 for the electrical system relocation project funded by FEMA.
Yep, I have a short presentation. I'll go to the short presentation, and we also have the gentleman from Stantec, who will be our project manager. He's got about 28 years of experience working with Stantec. He's an electrical engineer, and he had to come down from Sacramento today, and he was good enough to come here. He said he'd here and be a part of the board meeting. So he'll be here to answer any questions, but I'll make a short presentation and walk you through the process. Oh, this get confused. Okay. So close to 2 years back, that was on August 4th, 2023, Sam, under the hazard mitigation plan annex to the San Mateo County, which we spoke about a little while ago, we submitted an application to the Cal OES and FEMA hazard mitigation grant program for the electrical system relocation project. We had actually submitted an application in 2022, and that got rejected. They wanted us to fine tune some of the things and add, but there was not enough time given, and we had not completed the modeling which was required as a part of the risk measure. We got integral to do the modeling part of it, so that came in handy. So we were prepared when we filed an application in August 2023. So the critical power distribution assets, including the electrical power, the backup generator, as you've seen the pictures which Healy had shown, were all They are located at the lowest point in the plant, and during the winters of 21 and 22, 23, this building faced flooding from the Blair Citrus Creek. So the proposed project will reduce the risk of catastrophic failure. The electrical equipment will be elevated above the 500-year event. So we normally did the analysis with a 100-year event, and FEMA got back to us saying, no, this is not acceptable. We'd like you to do the 500-year event. So then we had to do it again, do all the iterations, and then we had enough time this time. And we had to do a risk and beneficial analysis or beneficial risk analysis, and then submit it to FEMA. So the proposed project is divided into two phases. Phase one is the design phase, and phase two is the construction phase. So on November 15th, 2024, SAN received notification of approval of the HMGP funds for phase one design of the project. We've been having regular meetings since then, and also have been required to submit monthly reviews have been taking place. We have been having monthly meetings, and they have assured us that this grant is no way getting affected. It is still funded, and there is no need to worry. That's what we've been assured as of now. So we decided to move forward with the project. The project cost for phase one is $539,700. As you've seen in the packet and the staff report, the 75% federal share, which is $404,775, has been obligated. So the non-federal share, which is phase one design, is $134,925, which will not be covered either by FEMA nor by Cal OES. So we started this procurement process. We started issuing RFPs for the phase one design project on March 3rd, 2025. We advertised in several newspapers, which is the San Francisco Chronicle, Mercury News, San Mateo Daily Journal, as well as put it up on certain bid sites. The RFP was also forwarded directly to certain civil and electrical engineering firms. Outreach included certain small businesses like Beecher Engineering, Frisch Engineering, YE Engineering. These are all electrical engineering firms. A mandatory pre-proposal meeting was planned on March 20th. Outreach was expanded to other large firms like Carollo Engineers, Cupertino Electric, Sandbell, and Woodard & Curran, with whom we've interacted in the past. April 15th deadline for proposals passed with no submissions. There was nobody who came for the mandatory pre-bid meeting, nor anybody showed up for the submission. Nobody was willing to quote for it. Either they were too busy for it, or they felt that they were a little skeptical, probably, with a combination of electrical and civil being in this project, because if it's going to be a new building or new location, certain amount of civil work would be required. So we did not get any bid. So we went out to FEMA and told them this is what it is. We have no bids for now. What do? They said, go ahead and reach out to certain engineering firms, and we don't have, now we've already done our due diligence. We've gone out for public advertisements and public bidding process, try and get proposals. That's when we reached out to Stantec and explained to them the process. And since Stantec is a huge company which has got all multidisciplinary firms, you have electrical, you have mechanical, environmental, and various other electrical firms, we reached out to them. So Stantec submitted a proposal on May 23rd, and staff reviewed it, found it to be complete and responsive. We negotiated the scope and fee with Stantec and received a revised proposal on June 3rd with a not to exceed fee for phase one design of $404,440. And that was well within our approved federal share of $404,775, because as indicated earlier, 100% is not granted by FEMA. It's only 90%. So that falls well within our approved amount. The Stantec proposal is now recommended for award of the contract by the board. So the timeline or the schedule is we are discussing the award of contract to Stantec today. And if it gets approved by the board, we would then go ahead and award the contract to them. get into a contract with Stantec and then have a kickoff meeting and start off thereon. We will definitely bring a progress report to the SAM board in September 2025, and the design will be completed probably in about 10 months' time. We've been talking to FEMA, and they've also agreed to give us extension dates because of all the process that has been followed, and we've not been able to get contractors. Plus, when they sent us the award letter, it came about a month late because from FEMA it had to go to Cal OES. So although in the packet it says October 15th, we didn't get it until end of November. So they've accounted for that too. So all in all, they are willing to move forward with the timeline that has been suggested. That's it. Staff is here for any questions. And Keely is from SRT is also here, who helped me put together the proposal, who helped me put together the RFP. And then we have Long from Stantec, who's here to answer any questions.
Jim, is that okay? Before we go to Stantec, just as a new person, can I ask you just some background questions?
Sure.
To your last point, do we have a new target date for completion from FEMA in writing yet? I think it was supposed to be 13 months from beginning to end, but we had a delay. So the original target date was November 15th. Do we have a new date when the plan has to be completed?
In writing, or I defer the question to Keely. Keely, do we have it in any of our minutes of the meeting which we are having with FEMA?
Yes, I'm looking right now. We do have an actual date that everything needs to be completed by, or for phase one. Let me pull it up.
Okay. Just for background, on I think a couple of the tours that I've gone or walked around with you, you've talked about, I think, about 3 different potential solutions to the building or where it could be. A couple of questions. One is, in the strategic plan, forgive me, I'm still new. The strategic plan related to this is developing longer-term reasonable perspective in concrete spending terms of potential alternatives. So my first question is, did you have an alternative to moving the building and moving all the electrical that you evaluated or at least talked about?
Yeah, a couple of options which we are looking at is at the same location, raise it to a higher elevation, number one. Number 2 is bring it here to a different location where it is at a much lower, higher elevation, which will not be affected by flood. And then the third is possibly using the garage, which belongs to Half Moon Bay.
Yeah.
We are discussing with them. And the fourth is getting the admin guys to move upstairs, create the building
doesn't
upstairs,
exist yet, yeah.
and then have the electrical here. It's just these options. So Stantec will be evaluating all these options, coming back with a estimated cost as to which is going to be more cost effective. And then the board will be able to take a decision at that point of time as to which is best for SAM to move forward.
So Chuck's favorite is, could we just build a flood wall around the building where it sits now? I know it needs to have a gate if you do that. And so you'd probably have to sandbag it, but I'm just checking to see what other options there were for potentially leaving it where it is that could be significantly lower cost. I'm sure you had these debates, but I'm kind of catch up.
Yep. So yeah, we're looking at various options.
Okay.
No, the integral study did talk about potentially, building a berm, further west, actually.
Yeah.
Anticipating
Similar to
sea
what
level
they did on the
rise,
creek.
the estuary moving more directly west of the plant.
Right.
But that's like a really long-term project. And actually, one shoreline is talking to the Corps about getting some money for some initial study on that sort of a project.
Okay.
It's not anything that would happen soon.
Just the second catch-up question, similar vein, is that I've heard FEMA grant potentially $3 million for that move. Do we have, or would we have any substantial basis for that number before we actually have the plan done? I mean, is FEMA's, is that $3 million from FEMA? If the plan comes back and it's going to cost $12 million, we may or may not decide to go forward with it. And if we don't go forward with it, would we have to give this $400,000 back to FEMA? They use a really interesting word like de-obligate the funding for phase 1.
I don't know. I haven't thought about it, but yes, if the phase one is not done as per FEMA requirement, then they say that it will have to be deobligated.
Yeah,
That
if we
is
don't, if we
ideal.
don't go on to phase two as planned. Okay,
I have no idea about it.
that's in the FEMA letter, the deobligation.
Yeah, deobligation is that if phase one does not comply with FEMA requirement, then they have all right to deobligate it.
Yeah, or outside the completion date and when there's no approved time extension, got that. Phase two, if phase two is unapproved, federal funds may be deobligated for previously completed phase one activities.
Correct.
So if we don't go through to phase two, we may have to give this $400,000 back.
If phase two is not approved, they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to know what we're up for. And you answered the completion date. I don't know if Keely found the new date yet.
I have the new the end date, April 2028.
Oh,
That is a construction.
oh, that's construction. That's the plan.
Phase one and two, phase two include.
Yeah, sorry. Our Cal OES contact said that our phase one end date can't extend past the overall project end date of April 2028. That's what I have in writing.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, I forgot to introduce, we have another gentleman from Stantec, Umesh, who's on Zoom. So Umesh and Lon will be working on this project together. So, yes.
Just a follow-up question. After reading this, it seemed to me that the proposal was for them to evaluate the relocation of the building. From what you just said, they're going to reevaluate options for managing the flooding danger to the building and look at multiple options in this $400,000?
Yeah, they're going to give us options, so I can.
Maybe they could speak to that, because that's
Maybe it's
not
a
what I
question for long can answer.
So when we
Long, would you be willing to stand up?
oh, sure. So when I met out here with Keishan and the plant, we looked at the location of the equipment. We talked about potentially raising the equipment up in place as one option to evaluate. We didn't look at potentially thinking about protecting the existing building with some sort of berm. You have to have access into there, so you'd have to really waterproof that whatever structure or wall you build around it. Two, you limit access for the equipment. So if you need to bring in new electrical equipment, you have to figure a way to hoist it over the wall, and then how far back you set the wall. So we could look at that, but there's a lot of impracticality from it.
Raising the equipment in the building sounds more practical.
Right.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you have to keep the plant running. So we could temporary with generators as an option, but then you're running generators all the time while you're getting this work done. And it's not a simple, quick fix, a couple of weeks maybe. So, it's a thought, but from an actual, if I don't have to keep plant running, then, that might be an easy solution. But because I have to keep the processes in place so that we treat the water, we need to have the electrical system running. So, yeah.
Can't unplug it.
Can't unplug it. Yeah.
Yeah, and under task 4 of their proposal, preliminary design report, they've clearly mentioned that their PDR will include a minimum of 3 alternatives for the existing electrical system modification. Barbara, was that your question saying?
Yes,
partners? Yeah, it's there in their proposal under task 4, preliminary design report.
And looking at alternatives is part of the environmental review process too, right? I mean, you have to look at alternatives, to justify your preferred project, basically.
Yeah. So we have an environmental group that's going to support this project. So whatever we provide as options or something that we're looking at, they'll provide input on that as well.
Tim, you gave a thumbs up on the admin building going up. Was that just upstairs, or do you have a preference? Okay.
Yeah.
I think having visibility for the crew of what's going on, particularly in an emergency, is critical. because it's more than just the electrical, it's the ponds and the bubblers and all of that stuff. If they get flooded, if we lose all our little guys who live in the bubblers, I mean, it could be a bad thing, you know, they're like nice little guys, they're critical.
Yes.
And we don't want them flooded out with that kind of thing, because getting them rehabituated and happy in that environment takes a while, and it also causes regulatory problems and fines. Right. And we'd rather just keep the little guys happy.
So it sounds as if there's actually two parts to this proposed contract. One is to evaluate all the proposed or potential alternatives,
It's the design.
and then to do the design for the selected alternative. Without knowing what alternative, how can you set a number on
So
that it's going to include
Right.
the design costs for?
Yeah. So I based our proposal on what I know, what I can do. Right. So I based the proposal based on whether one, reusing the garage facility there, that's easy enough to do, or two, another option is to put a electrical building to the east of the admin building. So those things I can quantify a design scope for and things like that. So I told Keishan is that we will evaluate expanding the admin building, but if we go that route, I would have to repropose on a sort of amendment for that, because expanding a building, there's a lot of unknowns from a design perspective. I mean, we have to bring in architects. You'll probably not want a square space, right? So you'll want some sort of design element to kind of at least allow you to use the space well. So that is a big unknown for us in terms of design requirements and things. So I specifically put in that we can evaluate that. But if the board chooses that option, we'll have to come up with a fee though I can take out the design fee that I've got in for the building or the garage retrofit, or possibly, I already know that I don't think we can raise the equipment up without impacting the price, there. So that's what I based the design fee on, was that approach.
I believe I've been through for my other board, Catherine Bay permitting processes. I think you'd have to add an elevator for ADA compliance if
Yes.
you go upstairs.
Yeah, so there's
which is also not cheap. Yeah.
A lot of things that's involved, and partly too, I think I mentioned to Keishan, I don't know the FEMA, requirements if we were to say add an addition to the building. So that's added plus for the JPA, right? So there might be some complication to that, but yeah.
My experience in real estate, having done remodels and new builds and talking to a lot of contractors and engineers and so on, it is far more efficient to use new space that you can plan all of your existing utilities into instead of trying to rework them around. I'm sure Paul has seen that same thing, that if you build a new building, you know what your uses are going to be, you put your plumbing in to new standards. You don't have to worry about old pipes. The same with all your power and your water supplies. And for a new building, we can always put a nice picnic spot for the staff up at the top. Elevators are not nearly as expensive as remodel costs. And because I love old houses, but the remodel costs, bringing them up to code can be crazy making. They don't have the right size supports, they don't have the right foundation, they don't have the right this or that, and pretty soon you're going, I could have built a new one for half. So I appreciate what you're saying. In a new location, we could make more accommodations or meet more needs with it.
Depends where.
Yeah.
I would just say that we have to be really efficient in this process because we don't know if in the future there'll be other FEMA money. So if we decide we don't like options and have to deobligate money, there might not be money for this sort of thing in the future. So I think what we need to do is find a solution this time around that's cost effective and makes the best use of what we have.
I agree.
Rather than tinkering around for something that might be perfect, but we need to spend the money, is my.
Don't let done be the enemy of the perfect,
Right.
or don't let perfect be the enemy of the done.
Exactly. Paul?
Mr. Chair, I have several questions. So I heard the proposed end date for design and construction is April 2028. The Santac proposal has 22 months. If you look at the timeline, I assume some of it is successive, some of it's concurrent. But there were 22 months in the.
I didn't put a date in.
No,
you
end date
said-
was 31/3/2026
Okay.
in his proposal. His start date, end date.
Oh, yes. So as far as within the schedule for the
Cost.
but yeah. So I figured I think we were doing that for
11 months, 10 to 11 months. Is
Okay.
for design
All right. So
purposes.
some of
The
this
FEMA
overlap.
timeline of 11 months.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
figured
13, all the FEMA said 13 months. I think they're
Yeah.
doing it.
That included 2 months for the bids, so 11 months for after bids.
Yeah. Okay, and then, when you say the total project cost was 539,700, where'd that number come from?
That was our estimate which we submitted to FEMA based on certain project costs which we got. We had engaged a consultant by name TJCAA. We had brought it to the board also. I think as recent as last year, we got them to revalidate what they had done a couple of years back. They came up with those figures, and some of those figures plus we added a couple of other things, and then we gave the price to FEMA. So total cost, the $3 million what we're talking of.
To complete everything, whatever that everything is that we don't know. Right? We don't know we're building yet.
Yeah, we have to make an estimate.
I
We
know.
put a grant application.
Yeah.
We don't have a shovel-ready project, so.
I know, but that FEMA, if I read the FEMA letter, they tell you you're removed, they already know, that's probably what you estimated.
Correct.
The project was to move to a new building. So that's where the 3 million came, but that's what their letter said.
Exactly.
So then, 75% of the total project cost is this 404,775, which Stantec's number is pretty close to that.
Correct.
So this 134,925, which is 25%, is FEMA going to do 75% of actually, isn't the final design number? Or, I'm trying to figure out who comes up with the 135,925, or what will that number be if the design cost changes?
If I understand your question, I think you're asking me whether FEMA would, instead of giving 404,000, would they give 75% of Stantec's proposal cost? Is that what your question?
What I'm worried is that's the actual cost isn't 539, it's 404.
Correct.
So it's 75% of that. And then we would come, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I'm trying to run the numbers here, then it would be the 25%. Who pays that 25%? Is that Sam?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't in the report. So Sam is responsible. In this case, we're saying 134, but I don't think that's true.
It'd be about 100, right?
So whatever 25% of the 404, that's what I'm thinking, if that's the actual number.
Kaylee, is that right? You will be able to answer the question, Kaylee, for me?
Well, I will point out, wait, can you guys hear me? Hold on. I will point out, I'm not on video. If you look at the original application that we sent into FEMA, we included some additional tasks that we're not having Stantec propose on because it doesn't really make sense when we can cover that separately and not have additional consultant markup on it, such as potholing, to gather some information of the plant. And so there may be additional costs that aren't covered by Stantec. So we can show FEMA that we're still, our project still costs the amount that they've approved us for.
But that number may still adjust depending on what.
Yeah, we remove the potholing, then preparing the bid documents or assistance during bidding. Couple of other things is what we remove the scope from
Right.
standards, because as and when required at that point of time, we do that. So those will add up to the project cost at that point of time. So we
Or whatever that cost would be.
Yeah.
It's just always going to be the 25% of that total cost. That's what Sam looks like. Worst case, I think it's worst case, 135.
34, yes.
Right? Okay, so that, but it could be less.
It will definitely be less. That's what.
And then we're not worried this selecting an alternative is going to cost some time. Is there anything that needs to go to the city for architectural review, anything for CDP, anything, I know we gave some time for permits, but permits can go longer than we typically think. So I just want to make sure we've thought this out, that it, we've got enough cushion in there, and I think FEMA and, but actually the Cal OES rep, is that who you guys talk to?
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that will talk to FEMA.
Correct.
So if you keep the relationship, you said you're going to talk every 2 weeks, something like that, or I don't know. I thought I heard that schedule.
Yeah, we have, I think, is it a monthly meeting, Keely, that we have?
Yes, every 2 weeks was for the reimbursement with FEMA, and then it's monthly for the hazard mitigation grant program. Yes.
So if you need an extension, you'll be able to, not at the last minute.
Oh, no, we've already started talking to them about it.
Yeah.
About the extension part of it.
That's good.
Yeah, that's why we're able to go forward with the phase one. Otherwise, no, we wouldn't be able to complete it by November 14th. We know November 15th, we know that.
All right.
So.
And so then the phase one management cost, that 26, almost 27,000.
Yeah.
What is that for?
That'll be like project management costs or grant management costs, engineering costs.
Who's that? Who gets that? Sam or Montero?
No, Montero doesn't get it. Sam gets it.
Okay, so it's through Sam, so everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
There seems to be a concern about Montero.
No, Montero should get their money if they submitted
Okay, thank you.
the grant. That's what I was trying to look out for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. So I just you cleared that up. I didn't know there was other work involved. And there's is it Sam that's going to be doing the work? Or?
Yeah, like for example, the management costs.
Let's say the pothole. That was what.
That will be from a third party.
Yeah.
So we have to appoint a third party and get those costs done. That'll be a part of the phase one supplement 52 costs. But the management costs will be typically like SRT consultants. We hire them. They would sit in our design review meetings. There are engineering consultants.
Okay.
So their time will have to be paid for.
Yeah.
That'll all come from the management costs.
Oh, okay.
And Sam's time, staff time.
Okay.
Okay.
And what do they mean on that page? They said the total amount available for new obligation. That just because you didn't, what's that 93,935? That letter that came from FEMA? Because they said they previously obligated the 404,775. And then that 93, is that it's 120 to get you back, or 135 to get you back to 539. I'm trying to figure out how they come up with that 93. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I think we'll start out with a 525. Well, they said 404 and then 120. They came up with a management cost of 120 and then they.
Oh, can you point out to which page?
So 65.
Subrecipient management cost account.
I'm sorry, it was attached to that FEMA.
Keely, are you able to pull up the award sheet?
Yeah, it was attached to that FEMA.
What Director Megan-Guest is talking about?
It's the document from dated 10/8/2024. It's page 65 of our pack.
I have
It's weird
the,
how they use it.
October 15th letter.
Right, it's an attachment to that.
Yeah, the attachment to that, he's talking of the obligation. There are two sheets on the obligation where you have 525 and 93,935.
Is it this letter?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an attachment to that.
Attachment.
Oh, it's an attachment to this. Okay.
There.
Yeah, two pages.
One.
Not in the next one.
I think,
Or not in the
I
previous.
think that one.
Trouble with it.
Yeah, that's where the 93 is on that
Yeah.
page. It's right there.
I know you have to talk about the page number or the PDF.
It's
Yeah,
blown up.
when I do this, I don't get the page number.
Now, where does that go, or what is that, and what happens with that? Is that still in play, or?
What's the problem?
I don't understand why.
Lots of people do that.
I'll look at this one, but here's what I see.
I know.
It's kind of overstraight.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Honestly, I do not know why that's in here and what this means because it doesn't impact this total amount. It's almost like they added it and then took it away. It just might be an internal.
That's a negative 90.
Yeah, that's why they de-obligated the
Yeah, look at
93.
the comment, de-obligate.
Well,
Is that the difference between the 500 plus number and the 404?
No, that's 135, but was weird, if I added 93 and 26, I came up with the 12920. I mean, all these numbers are interconnected, but I couldn't piece it all together. And it's like, wow, how is this, what are they
What I
doing?
read is the total amount available for new obligation is 93,935 after it was something else. It was minus, so I don't know.
Is that
I'm
an
not-
is that
I'm
an
not a-
allowable augmentation?
I'm not.
Like in the state, you're allowed like a 10% augmentation.
But the letter clearly says 404,775. We went with that.
Well, I think you have to go by
That might be the
that.
internal
Yeah,
workings. yeah.
okay. I see numbers, I start going down rabbit holes.
Sure.
They do that to you.
Yeah, but the letter in writing also clearly says, plus the table which they provided in the letter also, in the first page clearly says, matches with that.
Spreadsheets are easier.
So I have a follow-up question to Paul. Will somebody on staff serve as the project manager, or are you going to hire a project manager?
Since it's in the design phase, so we're not going to hire any staff for
For
a
now,
project for now.
Mhm.
Once the construction starts, then definitely we would have.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we sign off on this contract tonight, will we have to produce a final work plan and budget that we submit to FEMA based on the work that you will do for Sam? Like in the state, you have to, once you're under contract, you have to submit like a final work program with the tasks of the budget.
Yeah, we have to do that in our monthly reports that we give to FEMA.
Mhm.
We have to indicate the progress as to how much has been done, and we'll be able to also obligate part of the funds as and when it goes. We don't have to wait till the end of phase one to start getting the funds.
So you could include those under reports
Which reports?
on the first meeting of the
Oh, yeah.
month. We could just have those as a information only attachment.
Yeah, as I submit reports to to FEMA, I could also update the board about what's going on.
But they will be working off the final agreement with Stan Tech, I'm guessing, in the form of a work plan of some kind.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Director Dye?
Okay, I have three questions. Number one, I'm still confused about the scope of this contract. I looked at it, read it in as much detail as I normally would, for various reasons. But it seems to me that a full analysis of all the potential alternatives and their potential costs would be expensive to do. So is this contract that level of analysis of the options, or is it more or less a quick look at those and the money is going to be spent on a design for relocating the building. I mean, how, it seems like there's two things here, each of which can take a chunk of money, and how are you going to balance those two pieces?
Yeah, if I may answer, the proposal is to give us documents by which we can go out for a bid. So Stantec will provide estimated construction costs and the bid documents. So they'll give a bid
But
package.
not for all four alternatives.
Or for
They'll
whatever.
propose 4 alternatives, which the board can choose what they want.
So that's, they're going to do a
PDF.
quick and dirty, they're going to do
Conceptual.
they're going to do an
Yes.
analysis that will come back and then make a recommendation. This phase one of this phase one project. Part A is going to be to say, we've looked at all the alternatives. Here are the potential costs, the positives and the negatives, and so forth. And when will we expect to have that?
So that's in the, what we call the preliminary design report, and that would constitute about the 30% design level. So, Kishan, once we purport, I'll develop a schedule, and based on the design flow, it may be, so it'll probably be a month or two, because we have to spend the time to go back out on site and take a look at all the existing facilities. We'll bring the additional structural staff, civil staff to come take a look at the site and everything else. So that'll take a little bit of time. Then we'll develop a PDR, and part of the PDR will include a cost estimate. I think it's like a class 5 level cost estimate that will then compare the different options that we look at and the cost for those options.
So 30% of this funding is essentially going to go toward that part, and the remaining 70% is going to go to a more detailed plan for whatever option is selected.
All right.
More
Correct.
detailed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
30-70.
So the end of 30% design, the board will have an opportunity to decide
Okay,
which option
makes
one
sense to me.
one
Okay,
should
got it.
proceed with. And then Stantec will take that particular option and do the final design, which can go out for bidding.
But what if that costs more than 70% of the money that's left? I'm kind of uncomfortable doing it all at once. I would feel a heck of a lot better if because when I read everything, I thought we already knew what we were doing. And now it sounds like we're, sort of, kind of, but we want to look at these other things.
I
of
want
course.
to pitch in
You
here.
kind of have to.
If I could pitch in, just,
Yeah.
we've been thinking about this
Sure.
for more than a dozen years.
Let's see.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of thought already kind of under the belt. But in order to approach it properly, especially with regards to the requirements around considering alternatives, we got to consider alternatives. And what the heck, let's consider some. But I mean, when you look at the FEMA letter, they're like, you're going to move that stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
they've identified.
I think it's a matter of, we all have a pretty good idea where it's going. We got to do some due diligence. But it's not the kind of due diligence that you could go out to bid on. It's more.
Oh, no, I agree.
Yeah.
You would.
So I think, but I think the thing that we haven't said tonight so far was, we've been thinking about this for a long time.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's probably,
So the decision's been made, we just need to come up with the paperwork to justify the decision.
yeah, it's probably
Is essentially what you're saying.
probably 15 years that we've known we needed.
At least, yeah.
Let's bring some order to this conversation. So Barbara wasn't done yet, so Barbara, could you?
Well, no, I'm happy to continue this, following up on this train of thought first, because my other two questions are different. So is it true that, essentially we're going to, this 30% of the money is going to go to this design alternative? And what happens if the 70% that's left isn't enough to design
The preferred.
the preferred alternative?
Well, your consultant better make the best use of that money.
I agree.
Well,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
let as I said earlier, I based the proposal on what I've done in the past, what we know can quantify, which is essentially moving the equipment to a new electrical building
And recabling the whole plant.
and recabling the whole plant. Well, the design of it, yes.
The design.
Yeah, design, yes.
Okay.
So that, I've been doing this for 30 years, so I have an idea.
Bill, okay, all right.
And I've done work in, existing plants and stuff. So I have a good idea of what I know will probably end up as part of the design, but with Keisha and the staff's input and the board's input, we'll make it, the best approach. So that's what my proposal is based on. Now, the only caveat that I only put in there is if you choose to expand this building, that's the unknown there. So I can't give you a fee to do that because I don't know. I'd have to go through the whole building and figure out, what needs to be upgraded, what we're trying to do. And there's a lot of concepts and things that we have to go through another preliminary design report just for that, effort only.
That wasn't part of your initial scoping.
No. So I said, we will evaluate it and we'll have our structural engineer look at whether this building can support a second floor and things like that and come up with a cost for constructing it. But the actual design, if you were to choose it, we would have to renegotiate, additional fees for that. But if we were just to relocate the equipment to a new building, or maybe even use the garage facility next door here, we can do it within my design fee because I've done that before.
Okay.
And you want to be careful that you don't have to go back to FEMA to revise the project. If you have to go back to FEMA to revise the project,
The scope itself, yeah.
who knows what could happen there? That opens
That's what I'm worried about.
box.
I think my biggest worry is that everybody who is looking for funding from FEMA that is going to come in the future is reasonably anxious that it could get canceled over, a cat fight between the president and our governor. And so we could commit to phase one. I think here we have to say we have a risk that we could commit to phase one, the $400 and some $1,000, and end up having to pay that ourselves because the rest of the FEMA grant goes away. I'm sort of persuaded by the argument that we have to do something about it. So even if we ended up paying $400,000 ourselves, we would have a design.
Well, and we would have a better project than just lifting things up, because the concept of emergency access is one that we need to keep in mind. We've talked about Chuck's idea of, and I've talked to Keisha about it and other engineers about it, and they all just said, oh, that's a great idea. Now look at the problems.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe that building would I don't even know what it would make a great whatever for, because its likelihood of flooding is so high. And we've got to be looking at how to make this plant durable for the foreseeable future.
And lower our risk.
That's the whole point. Yeah,
Okay. That's the problem we're trying to solve.
exactly.
I'm just going to say about the upstairs possibility. I think it's good to aspire to things. It's good to want things, Tim.
Look at the ocean view our crew could have.
And if we're
Crow's nest.
on alternatives to include on the list to make sure that list is long enough, there's one right there. So I don't think it's going to take much to say, that could be really the eye-popping quote, but I can certainly. It makes a whole lot of sense that you all be able to look up over the plant, and even just the process of thinking about it may open up some other ideas that we benefit from just for having given it a little thought.
Just remember, though, we want to use the money that we have.
Oh, I'm all about getting this thing done. I'm tired of waiting. Yeah.
So we don't want too many little tangential,
Yeah.
And design review, I'm a little concerned. I mean, look at what they've got to start with, a cement block building, which was of perfectly wonderful 1960s design.
Great, during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Exactly.
All right. I have two more questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Barbara. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, one I want to follow up on what Nancy was talking about. My question number 3 was about, yes, the funds have been obligated. Today, there's an article in the paper about how the federal government is going to do increased scrutiny of California to try to remove every penny that they have ever committed to California. We certainly have seen case after case in the last however many months where funds that had been committed, money that had been spent, and that money was pulled back. Do we have, that's one question. And my other question that kind of goes with it is the budget for the SAM costs for this contract and the others. The current SAM budget isn't really elastic enough to add hundreds of thousands of dollars of a new project. Are we assuming that this would be included in next year's budget when we are also going to have the major costs of the force main repair? How do you see that issue being handled? So,
Well, I would say, hypothetically, say the president issues an order saying from tomorrow onwards, I'm not going to give any FEMA to California and especially to SAM. Okay, let's take that hypothetical. Then what's going to happen? We would have started the design work. Then what we would do is we would put it in our media budget adjustment and reach out to the member agencies so that we can have a shovel-ready project whenever we have the money, whenever we can get the grant, whenever we can do the process.
so in
So it's good to
3
have,
years.
yeah, it's good to have a design-ready project
Mhm.
so that we'll be most eligible for future grants when it opens up.
So we have a risk of $400,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
We have
We have to
some
be
of the
clear about
money already available to us today, correct?
We do have some of the money available, like for example, we have $1 million set aside for an emergency
No,
generator, which we have not used. So in our CIP thing, we can work around that and fund for this in case the member agencies are not able to fund at that point of time. Sorry, I
I was referring
misunderstood.
to the FEMA letter. I thought it made some mention that it's some small amount, like 75,000 was available today or something. It was,
That's the previous.
Was that the previous one?
project, yeah.
Yeah, that's the previous one. Yeah, but so far,
it's going to be aspirational, I guess.
yeah,
Those keep coming back to that.
but so far there is encouragement. We've not had any negative feedback from
Yeah.
Yeah,
fellow
the
users.
understanding is that that FEMA's off limits for the time being from the administration. They've made some decision to just close out all the projects that they have already awarded money
As
to.
in finish them.
They're going to finish this round. You know, who knows what'll happen when they're done, but that this is, all these grants are going to move forward. We're going to get them on.
Well, I'm hoping that we can do a 2-story building with glass facing the ocean for the boardroom.
Yeah, all right. Then you're welcome.
Those are good answers.
I'm not sure I would say that.
Barbara, did you get your question?
Yeah, those are good answers to my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I follow up on one of Barbara's questions? So this 539,700, that's not in our budget? Shows as a project?
That's not in our budget.
Shouldn't, I just don't kind of comfortable spending money not in a budget. I mean, I get it's all being reimbursed and everything, but typically, I'm used
You're
to.
saying the generator money, which is in the budget, could be repurposed.
Yeah, but we would name we're not going to name this project. Won't we amend the budget, and put this in?
Wouldn't it be a separate sub account? Like, is that kind of what you're saying?
Just something, just
Yeah.
to put it in our budget because we're spending. I mean, it gets reimbursed by FEMA or it's coming in from FEMA, but we're going to have signed checks to Sandtech. I mean, I'm just wondering.
Well, can we vote to modify the budget to allocate the funding that is there for the emergency generator, which Kishan doesn't think we need to spend immediately? To
An
this
emergency
project?
generator.
I don't know whether we need because our JPA policy says that I can move around the projects, move around the capital budget and O&M and all that, as long as the budget amount doesn't get exceeded. So I don't have to go back, but yes.
I don't know. I'm uncomfortable not having-
If and when it comes up saying that we need to use our funds, then we can get an approval to move them generator. Why?
Well, we have done it before. There was, we had a vote at the board level that several projects that we had allocate funding for were not necessary for various
Understood.
reasons that those funds were available. And we voted to reallocate those funds to a different project. And so maybe it's.
What was the project listed in the budget?
The one you reallocated to.
No, we reallocated it to.
We shouldn't be doing it. We should have, to me, I'm used to seeing items that we're working on, especially for signing checks. Anybody
Our
else think we
budget
needed?
has had a relative flexibility because there are unknown projects or urgencies that come up and we have to move things around, we didn't realize they were coming.
Yeah.
Now I hear what you're saying, that we can realize what they're coming. Maybe we can add it to the capital budget in some manner as a,
Yeah, take the case of the first one, which we presented, winter storm reimbursement. We hadn't got money from FEMA, so we reached out to the member agencies and made a mid-year budget adjustment, saying that we want this money,
Yeah.
but this will get reimbursed over a period of time. So we can do that once we get a fair idea about what's happening and how much is to be spent.
I agree with Paul about, that's what my point, I think we're the same point, though I'm saying I'm more comfortable as long as there's a board vote to reallocate unneeded budget, already budgeted funds.
And we should list it. I mean,
Yeah, and then it would be in the list.
Yeah, because we knew this was coming. So I think that's your point.
well, I mean, now,
so-
but it's
You have
not
to
even
count.
now. I mean, now to me, okay, we know everything now. We're approving a design, but contract,
For money that isn't actually technically there.
and it's not there. That just seems weird to me.
Well, I would have
And we
liked
knew
if
this was
that
coming.
vote, proposal for that vote had come tonight along with this
Yes.
matter.
I think how we get here is that what we typically do in the budget is, this is what we're budgeting to collect from the member agencies so that we can fund the work of the agency through the year. I take your point, and I'm not arguing.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out how do we get here, and then if it's a straight across
Jeremy, we can hear you.
reimbursement, and then there's this other thing of, in 20 years, when we want to look back and look at the record, it's really important we be able to find it.
Oh,
So I think there's some value in that. So that's just some thoughts on that.
I would just say, have our general manager come back with a proposal as to how to show it,
Yeah.
as part of the CIP and the budget. He could talk to the accounting staff, to do that. We don't have to hash it out tonight.
No. Yeah.
So
As long as
I'd
we're,
like to leave that there.
yeah.
And some of it could be in next year's budget as well.
Yes, but the direction of staff is, the board would like to see how you're going to account for this project and the expenditure for funds and any transfers that might have to come from the general budget to capital.
Right, because you're gonna have to make, excuse me, Chair, because you're gonna have
Yes,
to,
thank you for asking.
because you're gonna have to make payments on something that we wouldn't necessarily have in our budget. It's just right. And I don't know, you're gonna make payments 75-25? Or you're just gonna make a payment? We don't know where that pot's coming from yet. We're pretty sure 75% is FEMA money. But we're not, and 25 is gonna be SAM money. But you know what I'm saying? It's kind of a,
Well, he also has,
Staff will figure it out, okay?
okay.
he also has a line item for contract work that has some flexibility.
That's a good point too.
Yeah.
Well, let's staff figure it out.
Yes, but I think you and I are in agreement that we got to figure this out.
I just like
Where's
seeing
the
the
money
budget.
going to come from?
Okay, any other questions?
Should we let him present?
He was here to answer questions.
That's a question.
Oh, okay. I thought Kishan said he had a presentation.
He's present here to answer questions.
Got it.
So,
I will say I look forward to seeing after this discussion what options you come up with.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd like to ask the public online if anyone would like to address this item on our agenda.
I have one quick question. If you work with.
Jeremy, is your hand up?
Yes, it is. I was just going to say there, as to, are you guys able to hear me okay?
yes,
Okay, good. I was just going to note that in the JP agreement, we had a lot of discussion about how do we fund this. Section 5E of the JPA agreement states that all expenditures within the designations and limitations of approved general project budgets shall be made on the authorization of a majority of the directors present. And it says no expenditures in excess of those budgeted shall be made without the unanimous consent approval of all the directors representing the member agencies affected by the budget considerations. So you could, I read that as allowing, if you have a unanimous vote, you could do something that's not, you would have to amend the. So,
You're breaking up.
So it's a workaround. If we don't want to amend the budget, we can just approve it unanimously. So, and since
The
they.
contract, unanimously, or
He's talking about any spending that's not in the budget, if we all agree unanimously.
Yeah.
So he's giving us an out if we don't want to go through the formal.
That's correct.
But I really like your suggestion. Take it to staff, let them come back. And
Yeah.
that's one of the options.
I think they hear the problem we're trying to solve
Yeah.
here in terms of
Yeah, it's a good suggestion.
information.
just because we can, doesn't mean we should.
So I don't see any other hands raised, so I'll bring it back to the board.
I'd like to go ahead and move awarding the contract with Stantec Consulting Services in an amount not to exceed $404,440 for the electrical system relocation project funded by FEMA.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Could we have a roll call, please?
Director Negengast,
Yes.
Director Marsh,
Yes.
Director Boyd,
Yes.
Director Dye,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter,
Yes.
Chair Roddick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Even though it's unanimous, you're still going to come back to it.
It's an easy time on the road.
Oh, yeah, it's going down.
Yeah,
That was
discuss on
the contract.
Much nicer.
let's discuss on the finance committee
Yeah.
and then we.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Which is good, isn't it?
Okay, so moving on to item 5, general manager's report.
I would drive that one.
Wait, we have
Sorry.
many conversations.
Thank you.
Yes,
What time?
Yes.
Okay.
Good luck. Thank you.
Okay.
okay, the entire report is in the packet. Additionally, the force main, Sam Force Main in Montara is going as scheduled. The Caltrans encroachment permit for geotechnical work has been submitted. We anticipate that geotech work will begin by the end of this month and will take about 3 to 4 days to finish that. And of course, the preliminary design is dependent on the findings of the geotech investigation and preliminary environmental information. So once this is obtained, the preliminary design will be completed, but it is going as per schedule. Just a short update.
And who will do the geotech?
Come again?
Who will do the geotech?
That depends on the contract.
Okay.
Contract.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions on the manager's report?
How about the attorney's report?
Yes, very quickly, I was just going to tell the board, first of all, I know you've had some trouble hearing me. Hopefully, is it better now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Hopefully it stays that way. Recent case came out on May 30th, Luck versus City and County of San Francisco. Deals with wastewater and stormwater. It's a Prop 218 case. It kind of continues the trend of local agencies not faring well in challenges to their rates under Prop 218. This was one little bit of a surprise to folks. Aqua, CASA, CSDA, they're all involved in trying to defend the county and the city of San Francisco, but ultimately the appeals court reversed the trial court and found that there was not, at least at this stage of the proceedings, there was not compliance demonstrated with Prop 218. The case deals with, for those of you who are familiar with some of the long-running issues in stormwater in California, there's been a long-running issue as to whether stormwater should be considered sewer service. And the reason that matters is because if it's considered sewer service, you only need a majority, you only need to be able to survive a majority protest. Whereas if it's not considered sewer service, it's not within one of the exceptions of Prop 218, and you have to have an election in order to be able to impose the stormwater fee. So it's a big issue, particularly for cities, as to whether they're able to impose a fee or not without having an election first. And what the court ultimately found was that because San Francisco has a combined sewer and stormwater system, they were able to dodge the issue for the most part and say, hey, this is combined. So we don't have to answer this kind of lingering question as to whether stormwater fees can be considered sewer fees so as to avoid having to have an election. So on that front, they kind of dodged the big issue, which will come back again. But I think the one thing that this board probably should be aware of is just the level of scrutiny and the requirement for a demonstration of proportionality. The court faulted the parties in the trial court, I guess specifically the City and County of San Francisco, for not demonstrating that the factors that are normally used to set rates for or to determine costs for sewer, which is normally flow and strength, the court said, hey, that's not really appropriate for stormwater. And you guys haven't given us any of the factors for stormwater, which would determine what is appropriate for cost of service. So they really kind of got down in the weeds in a way that's a little bit surprising. And so, again, I guess the takeaway for everybody from this is just courts are looking at this closely. And so even more emphasis on the cost of service study when setting rates. So that's my report. Thank you.
Jeremy, could you send us a link to that decision?
Of course, happy to.
Thank you.
That would be nice. One day when I was in Richmond, sort of lost, I stumbled across the City of Richmond stormwater treatment plant. And I was surprised to see that they had a septic plant.
Wow.
And I'm wondering if that's, maybe you can answer that offline, but if that's a coming trend in stormwater.
That's an awfully expensive approach.
If you have as many big industrial things, isn't Richmond have
Huge. Yeah.
huge industrial things that could affect?
Well, but the way bureaucracy, the way I've observed bureaucracy work is it starts out with this big horrible problem, and then it gets down to the little guys and says, "Oh my God, no, you're polluting the ocean because you have, I don't know, raccoons living in your pump, or raccoons living in your crawl spaces or something." So yeah.
Well, just to answer that question really quickly, the emphasis of the regional water quality control boards has been to get what are essentially nuisance flows. So if it's dry, it's not raining out, and yet you have people watering their lawns too much, you have people washing their cars, you have really dirty water. The idea is that into the sewer systems so they can be treated and doesn't wind up in receiving water bodies. They've had different cities have had varying levels of success doing that because it's very expensive.
Yeah. Okay. Any director's reports under item 7?
Nope.
All right. Topics for future board consideration?
We've got the attachment.
All right. Do we need to have a closed session this evening?
Yes.
Yes, we do. We have, we probably need it for both items. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to convene in closed session, which means that anybody online who's not part of the closed session meeting will have to log off. And we're going to take a 5-minute break while PCTV moves their equipment.
Yep.
We'll be back shortly.
Okay. Thank you.